We've got a few minutes. You did predict it, so you're forgiven. You already said you were going to do this. But anyway, I've got a few questions, but I also, first of all, want to make sure we have time for audience questions. So if you have one, prepare for it and put your hand up, and I'll try to see you. So first one's for Steve. How close are those? And by the way, I have to tell you, you were very, very humble about the 40 million. As I pointed out earlier on, you're 62% up on last year. That's an amazing achievement. So if all our businesses would grow at 62% a year, but how closely aligned are all those deployments? Are they, in other words, do you have a common code base, or are they just different versions of almost the same thing?
Yeah, so we run a common repository. Again, it's open source, and we keep past versions. So not everybody's on the same exact version, but everybody has access to all the versions. The quest is everybody at some point is getting on a cadence to get up to the latest release. And the reason is because most of the new feature functionality and the things that Fraser just talked about are in the new release. And if there's any patches, they're all in the new release. So everybody is on an objective to get to the latest release. It's just people are at their own cadence. But that's some of the beauty. That is the thing that operators like. Nobody tells them what version to put on. It's beneficial for them to get up front.
Got it, thank you. Okay, there's no hands up. I'm going to continue. Pedro, I was fascinated to see your iris promise, but you didn't actually describe what it meant. So could you give us a little bit more what the iris promise was?
It's UMA, it's not iris. So iris was the product that we had before. Okay. So we launched that product 2010. It was actually a very, very successful product, not based on RDK. UMA is the product that is based on RDK. It's our premium product, the product that we launched in 2016. And basically the promise of UMA is to have a very, very personalized experience. So we pitch to our customers that all boxes are installed the same, then they all become different. And why? Because we engage very heavily on the personalization. What you see in the way that you engage with the UI is very specific to your experience from the data that we are collecting from what you are using. I just forgot to say that our experience is profile-based. It means that you engage with profiles. It means that you have a continuity on your experience from the box also to your personal devices. When using your mobile devices, you have continuity on what you are enjoying in terms of content from one device to the other. So basically, that's the promise of UMA, very, very personalized experience with best content. It doesn't matter if it is operator content or OTT content, and new ways of discovering content. So it's not only a graphical interface, it's also a voice interface. A voice interface, it's also a user interface. It's not graphical.
Got it, thanks. So one of the things that I thought was interesting in what you described was the way in which onboarding of these third-party sources was made so much easier and quicker. Does that mean that you're on a path to encourage your customers to not need a Roku box? They won't need any other device to get some of these third-party sources. Is that the direction you're going in?
I don't know. I wouldn't dictate other people's product strategy, but I think the way we see it is we want to be like an aggregator of all the content you love at Comcast with X1. If anyone hasn't seen the X1 product, I recommend going and have a look at it on the website. And it's fundamentally an integrated experience. So we believe that the best place to find your most favored Netflix content is through X1. Again, we launched Voice about 3 or so years ago. We launched it with an NLP because we knew that was going to be an important way to bring all that stuff together. So you can search for, Blacklist or House of Cards on Netflix, and it comes through our UI, and then you pivot into that app. Or you can search for like cat videos on YouTube, whatever you want, and it brings that in there. And the benefit of that is if, for the Olympics, for example, when we did a special product for the Winter Olympics, Shaun White in there for snowboarding. There's Shaun White, a bit about him, and his persona, all the content that was on NBC and on NBC over IP were on the same page. And then also all of the stuff in his YouTube channel was in the same place. So in fact, just by saying Sean White, I get one place where I can go and see all that content aggregated. And the same rules apply for NFL and other things like that. So I think in general, although I've not answered your question on purpose, I would say that like our strategy is to try and bring that in. You know, if you look at Netflix, YouTube, and then, you know, one or two other people, they're predominantly the main content consumption of any customer out there. So we believe that the more content you can aggregate in one place, why would anyone want to go to the second HDMI input? If we can provide it in a easier way than anyone else through an interface that's better than anyone else's, then that's all just that's all goodness on top.
Well, the way you answered that, I think you got a future in Congress. So I think but
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, are there other questions? Okay, so
there's one there.
There's one. Okay, good. Yes, there's a microphone on its way, so we can all hear you. If you could introduce who you are and where you're from.
Yes, I'm Christopher from Spectral Edge, a small technology company from Cambridge. We're a real Cambridge company, not like the bad guys in the news recently. Yeah. They're not even from Cambridge as well as being bad guys. I'm very interested. I have had a look at the Xfinity platform. It's really good. I think I was in Philadelphia with Mark Francisco, who I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah, Mark's, yep.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
We may well be getting to the RDK level at some point if we're successful. And I was just wondering if you could comment on how RDK can help third-party plugins, why it's better than other middleware for that, and especially at the lower level, things like the GStreamer, where the GStreamer is, where you showed.
Yeah. So I think each of those. So I'll try and answer your question. I think the top bit we talked about, like if you want to look at plugins as in a way to have user interface, you can have native JavaScript or HTML, which covers basically nearly all things. There's a few outliers. But like at the lower levels, I think there's a lot of innovation to be had there. I think probably the best example is at Wi-Fi these days. So we, within RDK for broadband and also RDK for video, we've integrated a bunch of mesh network technology for Wi-Fi, and that's all plugs in straight away to what we call the Wi-Fi HAL, which is the hardware extraction layer, right? And what we've done is on broadband, video, and camera, all the abstraction layer description is described in the same way. Right, and by that I mean the data that you can control that Wi-Fi driver at and the information you get from that Wi-Fi driver. And that's really, really good for two main reasons. One is that if you are, so for example, if I'm Fraser Mesh Incorporated, right, I can come along, take that open source from RDKM, and I can immediately write something that scales across all of our platforms and all of our devices in a consistent way, which means you get less code and less chance for errors. So I think that's one massive part of it from your perspective. The other part for everyone else in the room, it means that if I want to run a dashboard from a massive amount of Splunk data or in Redshift or whatever your poison is, if I want to run a report or a dashboard against that, exactly the same errors or exactly the same data is described and provided in exactly the same way, right? So I can pivot Wi-Fi performance against all my video devices and my broadband devices and all the cameras in exactly the same way. So I can run majorly huge reports on performance and operational kind of stats and stuff in exactly the same way, really, really easily every time. And that's good because it means you don't need like 30 people that are doing manual reports every month, which I'm sure we've all been there or we're in that situation now. And that's a huge part of it, right? Because if you can't use that data, the reason we can shift code every 2 weeks to all those devices is because we have the data to support those decisions. You can't just switch code and shift it without that visibility. So that's a big, big part of what we do.
Thank you so much. Sadly, we've run out of time. We're going to shift gears, so please give your appreciation to this panel. It's been very interesting. Thank you.